November 24, 1943. Algiers, Allied Forces Headquarters, North Africa. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, sits at his desk in a stone-walled office overlooking the Mediterranean. Maps of Italy cover the table. Plans for the invasion of Europe scatter across every surface. The Sicily campaign is won. The Italian mainland is next. And after that, France. Germany. Victory. Then the door opens. His chief of staff walks in. No knock, no announcement, just walks in holding a manila folder marked Eyes Only, Confidential. His face is pale. Eisenhower looks up. What is it? The chief of staff places the folder on the desk. Sir, we have a problem. 2 separate incidents. General Patton struck hospitalized soldiers. Medical reports are filed. The press corps knows. Drew Pearson is preparing to broadcast it to the entire United States in 72 hours. Eisenhower opens the folder. His hands stop moving. He reads. Then reads again. His face goes white. Inside that folder are reports that his best field commander, General George Patton, the man who took Sicily in 38 days, the most aggressive armor commander the Allies have, walked into 2 separate military hospitals and slapped shell-shocked soldiers. Called them cowards, in front of doctors, in front of nurses, in front of dozens of witnesses. And the American press is about to tell 130 million people. Eisenhower stares at the papers. Because George Patton just gave him an impossible choice. Lose the war's most aggressive general, or face the fury of a democratic nation. If you want to know how one man's moment of rage nearly destroyed the Allied invasion of Europe, and what America's top general said when democracy itself drew the line, then stay with me. Because this is the story of when military genius collided with American values, and only one could survive. I'm Elite War Files, and this is the untold story of what General Marshall told Eisenhower when Patton's war almost ended. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let me know in the comments if you've heard this story before. Because what happens next will change everything you thought you knew about World War II leadership. Eisenhower reads the first report. The 15th Evacuation Hospital near Nicosia, Sicily. General Patton arrives for an inspection. He walks through rows of wounded men, shrapnel wounds, amputations, burns. Then he stops at a soldier sitting on a cot. No visible injuries, no bandages. Private Charles Cool, 21-year-old, diagnosis: chronic dysentery and malaria. Exhaustion after 4 days of continuous artillery barrage. According to the medical report filed by Colonel Donald Currier, Patton asks the private what's wrong. Cool says he's sick. His nerves. Patton's voice goes cold. Sick? You're sitting here while real men are dying on the line. Then Patton slaps him, across the face, with his gloves. The tent goes silent. Doctors freeze. Nurses stop moving. Patients stare. Patton grabs Cool by the collar, physically drags him toward the tent entrance, shouting that he won't have cowards in his hospitals. A medical officer steps forward. General, this man has malaria and Patton cuts him off. I don't care what he has. Get him back to the front. 7 days later, it happens again. Eisenhower flips to the second report, August 10, 1943. The 93rd Evacuation Hospital. Patton walks in. Another inspection. Another soldier with no visible wounds. Private Paul Bennett, 21 years old, 4 years of continuous service in North Africa and Sicily. Diagnosis: severe battle fatigue. The medical report from Lieutenant Colonel Perrin Long is explicit. Bennett is shaking uncontrollably. Crying. Diagnosed with acute psychoneurosis. Patton approaches. What's your problem? Bennett's voice breaks. I can't take it anymore, sir. The shelling. I can't stand it. Patton explodes. He slaps Bennett once, then again. Then he pulls his ivory-handled pistol, waves it in Bennett's face, and shouts, "You yellow bastard, I should shoot you myself." Medical staff rush forward. Patton storms out. Behind him, Private Bennett collapses. Eisenhower closes the folder. He looks at his chief of staff. 2 incidents? In front of medical staff? Yes, sir. Witnessed by doctors, nurses, dozens of patients in both hospitals. The medical reports are explicit. Colonel Currier and Lieutenant Colonel Long have both filed formal complaints through medical channels. Eisenhower stands, walks to the window. That's career ending. That's court-martial material. It gets worse, sir. War correspondents were at both locations. Quentin Reynolds, Damari Bess, Al Newman. They've all filed reports with their editors. The editors are holding the stories, for now. But Drew Pearson got the story through civilian channels. He's not under military censorship. He broadcasts this Sunday night to 30 million Americans. Eisenhower turns. 72 hours? Yes, sir. Eisenhower stares at the map of Europe on his wall, at the invasion routes, at the battle plans that depend on speed, on aggression, On the one general who fights faster and harder than anyone else. The one general he can't afford to lose. And that's when Eisenhower realizes George Patton hadn't just slapped 2 soldiers, he'd just slapped American democracy itself. Eisenhower sits back down. His voice is quiet. Get me the full files, every witness statement, every medical report, and get me General Patton's schedule. We need to talk. But here's what Eisenhower doesn't know yet. That conversation won't matter, because this isn't just about 2 slaps. This is about whether the most powerful military in the world answers to its generals or to its people. And in 72 hours, the American people are going to demand an answer. The Chief of Staff hesitates. Sir, there's one more thing. What? That's not just one moment of anger. That's 2 separate incidents, 7 days apart. Different locations, dozens of military witnesses each time. This wasn't impulse. This is a pattern. And sir, every major war correspondent in the theater saw those medical reports. Eisenhower closes his eyes. Because he knows what that means. This isn't a discipline problem he can handle quietly. This is a scandal. And scandals don't stay buried in wartime. They explode. Let me take you back 3 months. August 17, 1943. Eisenhower's headquarters, Algiers, a private meeting. No aides, no staff, just 2 men. Eisenhower sits behind his desk. Patton stands at attention. Between them, a letter. Eisenhower wrote it himself, 3 pages. Every word calculated. Every sentence a barely controlled fury. Eisenhower's voice is ice. George, you've given me the most difficult decision of this war. You struck sick men in hospitals, witnesses everywhere. The articles of war are clear. This is conduct unbecoming an officer. I have medical colonels demanding your court-martial. Patton doesn't flinch. Ike, they weren't wounded. One had chronic diarrhea. The other just looked tired. Men are dying taking hills, and these boys are sitting in hospitals claiming nerves. I won't have cowardice in my army. Eisenhower slams his hand on the desk. They were diagnosed by doctors. Kuhl had malaria and exhaustion after 4 days of straight artillery barrage. Bennett had served 4 years without rotation. 4 years, George. These weren't cowards. They were broken men. And you pulled your pistol on a sick soldier. Patton's jaw tightens. And we took Sicily in 38 days. Faster than anyone thought possible. Faster than Montgomery. Faster than Alexander predicted. I pushed those men because I won't lose soldiers to timidity. Every hour we coddle weakness. 10 more real men die on the line. Eisenhower stands, walks around the desk, stops inches from Patton. George, you're the best armored commander I have. Maybe the best the Allies have. But I have a letter on my desk from the theater surgeon demanding your immediate relief. And I have war correspondents who could destroy not just you, but American confidence in this entire command. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize, publicly, to every division in 7th Army, to the medical staff at both hospitals, to those 2 soldiers if we can find them, or I will relieve you myself. The room goes silent. Patton's face is stone. And if I refuse, Eisenhower's voice drops. Then you'll be on a plane home before the week ends. Your career will be over, and you'll spend the rest of this war watching other men win it. Patton stares at him. 10 seconds. 20. Then he salutes. Stiff. Formal. Military precision. Turns. Walks out. Doesn't say a word. The door closes. Eisenhower sits back down. Buries his face in his hands. Because he just threatened to fire the one general who can win battles no one else can win. The one general Germany fears most. But George Patton's real problem isn't Eisenhower. It's 535 members of Congress who are about to hear this story. And unlike Eisenhower, they don't need Patton to win battles. They need him to not embarrass America. Late August 1943. Patton begins what soldiers will later call the apology tour. Eisenhower's orders are explicit. Every division, every hospital, public apologies, face to face. First stop, 1st Infantry Division, the big red one. Combat veterans, men who fought North Africa, Sicily, soon to fight France. They assemble in a field outside Palermo. Thousands of soldiers in formation. Patton walks to the front. His voice carries across the formation. I apologize for my impulsive actions. I lost my temper. It won't happen again. Silence. No applause. No response. Some soldiers turn their backs. The division commander, Major General Clarence Hubner, watches. Later, he'll write to Eisenhower. Morale impact negative. The men don't understand why their general is apologizing for being hard. They respect toughness. They don't respect weakness disguised as discipline. Patton visits the hospitals next, walks into the 15th Evacuation Hospital, stands in front of the medical staff, doctors who watched him strike a sick man, nurses who filed complaints. He reads from a prepared statement. His voice is flat. My actions were inexcusable. I allowed my passion for winning to override my judgment. I apologized to the medical personnel and to Private Cool. A nurse in the back whispers to a doctor. He doesn't mean it. The doctor nods. No, he doesn't. But the apologies aren't the story. Because while Patton is apologizing to soldiers, war correspondents are watching their editors kill the biggest story of the war. And they're furious. September 1943. A letter arrives at Eisenhower's headquarters. From Damari Bess, veteran war correspondent. The letter is blunt. General Eisenhower, you're asking us to suppress legitimate news that 50,000 American soldiers already know. This isn't wartime security. This is reputation management. We've covered for the military when it protected operations. This protects one man. Patton slapped 6 soldiers. That's news, and you're asking us to bury it. Eisenhower reads the letter. Then picks up the phone, calls the press liaison. Get me a meeting with the correspondents, all of them, today. That afternoon, Eisenhower meets the press corps in a briefing room. No prepared remarks. No notes. Just honesty. Gentlemen, I know what you have. I know what you could publish. And I know you think I'm protecting Patton. You're right. I am. Because if this story breaks now, we lose our best attack commander before the invasion of Europe. And Germany wins. Not because Patton is irreplaceable, but because the chaos that follows will cripple this command for 6 months. We'll spend more time answering congressional inquiries than planning operations. So I'm asking you, not as your commander, as someone who needs your help to finish this war. Hold the story, please. The room is silent. Then Quentin Reynolds stands. General, we'll hold it, but not forever. If something breaks this open, we're not responsible. Eisenhower nods. Understood. The reporters hold. Barely, but they're not the problem. Because in Washington, a civilian journalist who owes no allegiance to military censorship is about to get the story. And nothing Eisenhower says will stop him. November 1943. Washington, D.C. Drew Pearson sits in his office reviewing notes. Pearson is a radio journalist. Civilian. No military clearance. No obligation to protect the Army. His Sunday night broadcasts reached 30 million Americans, and he just received detailed accounts of the slapping incidents from a source inside the medical corps. Pearson reads the reports, then picks up his phone, calls his producer. I'm doing a segment on Patton this Sunday. Book the time. This is big. 3,000 miles away, in the War Department, Secretary of War Henry Stimson gets a phone call. An aide's voice is urgent. Sir, Pearson has the Patton story. He's broadcasting this Sunday. We've confirmed it. Stimson hangs up. Immediately cables Eisenhower. Person broadcasting slapping incidents this Sunday. Congressional response expected Monday. Prepare statement. Then Stimson picks up another phone. He doesn't call Eisenhower. He calls the only man who outranks every general in the United States Army. General George C. Marshall, Chief of Staff, the man who built the American war machine. And Marshall is about to tell Eisenhower something that will change everything. Sunday night, November 21st, 1943. Across America, families gather around radios. Drew Pearson's voice crackles through speakers in 30 million homes. Good evening. Tonight I must report a disturbing story that the military has suppressed for months. General George Patton, one of America's most decorated commanders, repeatedly struck sick and wounded soldiers in military hospitals, called them cowards, threatened them with his pistol. Medical officers filed complaints. The Army covered it up. In living rooms across the country, parents freeze. Mothers whose sons are serving overseas. Fathers who remember the last war. The words hit like artillery. The incidents occurred in August in Sicily. Private Charles Cool, suffering from malaria and exhaustion. Private Paul Bennett, diagnosed with severe battle fatigue after 4 years of service. Both slapped by General Patton. Both humiliated in front of medical staff and fellow patients. And the Army, under General Eisenhower, chose to protect Patton rather than discipline him. By Monday morning, November 22nd, the Capitol switchboard is overwhelmed. Congressional offices receive thousands of telegrams. Western Union can't keep up. Mothers demand answers. If my son is hospitalized, will he be beaten? Senator Robert Reynolds of North Carolina takes the floor. Mr. President, I don't care how many tanks General Patton commands. In a democracy, no general is above accountability to the people. I am calling for a full Senate investigation. Congressman Dewey Short of Missouri follows. This is conduct unbecoming, not just an officer, but a human being. General Patton should face court-martial. And General Eisenhower should explain why he protected him. By Tuesday afternoon, 47 congressmen sign a petition demanding Patton's immediate relief from command. The petition lands on Secretary Stimson's desk. He reads it, then walks to the White House. President Roosevelt needs to know. At the War Department, press officers are besieged. Phone calls, telegrams, reporters demanding answers. One press officer tells Stimson, "Sir, we have senators calling this military brutality covered up by Eisenhower. They're questioning his fitness to command now, too." Stimson sits in his office. In front of him, newspaper headlines. The New York Times, Patton slapped soldier. Called him coward. The Washington Post. General's conduct questioned. The Chicago Tribune. Army covered up Patton brutality. Stimson picks up the phone, calls General Marshall. "George, we need to talk." November 24, 1943. The Pentagon. General George Marshall sits at his desk reading the Congressional temperature. 47 signatures demanding investigation. Front page scandals. Roosevelt's office crushed with complaints. And across the Atlantic, Eisenhower trying to plan the invasion of Europe while his best general becomes a political liability. Marshall picks up the secure phone. Dials Algiers. The line crackles. Clicks, then connects. "General Eisenhower." Marshall's voice is calm, even. The voice of a man who's made harder decisions than this. "Ike, I've reviewed the congressional response. 47 members have signed a demand for investigation. Reynolds is calling for public hearings. The secretary has been to the White House twice today. Roosevelt is taking heat from every direction. This is no longer a military matter. It's a political crisis." Eisenhower's voice is strained. "General, I know Patton's actions were inexcusable. I've dealt with it. He's apologized to every division. To the medical staff. I've issued a formal reprimand. He understands the severity. What more can I—" Marshall cuts him off. "It's not about what you've done. It's about what Congress will do. They're demanding answers that satisfy the American people, not answers that satisfy the chain of command. Mothers are terrified their sons will be beaten in hospitals. Senators see votes in this. Roosevelt is getting crushed in the press. The political pressure is unbearable." Eisenhower is silent. Marshall continues. "I'm looking at a petition signed by 47 members of Congress. They want Patton relieved. They want hearings. They want you to testify. And Ike, some of them want you relieved too. They're saying you covered this up to protect a friend." Eisenhower's voice hardens. "I protected an essential commander to preserve operational capability. I know that. You know that. But Congress doesn't care about operational capability right now. They care about accountability. And unless there is visible, career-impacting punishment, there will be a congressional investigation. They'll subpoena you. They'll subpoena Patton. They'll subpoena every doctor, every nurse, every patient who witnessed those incidents. They'll turn this into political theater, and Ike will lose 6 months of planning time answering questions from politicians who don't understand warfare. 6 months we don't have, and they're prepared to relieve both of you if they don't like the answers." Eisenhower's breathing is audible over the line. "So what are you telling me?" Marshall pauses. "I'm telling you that unless there is visible punishment, Congress will force it. They're drawing the line. Patton faces real consequences now, or he faces them in Washington, under oath, in front of newsreel cameras, with every American watching." The line goes silent. 10 seconds, 20. Eisenhower's voice is barely a whisper. "You're saying I have to relieve him." Marshall's tone shifts. Not harsh, almost gentle. "I'm saying you have to decide. Do you want to control this outcome? Or do you want Congress to control it? Because right now, democracy is speaking louder than strategy." Another long silence. Then Marshall says the words that will define this moment. His voice drops. Quiet. Firm. Final. "You're the supreme commander, but Eisenhower, you still answer to a democracy. And democracy just spoke." Eisenhower closes his eyes. Because in those words, Marshall just explained the entire war. Not the military war, the political war. The war that America fights differently than Germany, than Japan, than any dictatorship. This is the moment where military excellence collides with democratic accountability. Marshall isn't threatening Eisenhower, he's explaining reality. In a republic at war, no general, no matter how brilliant, no matter how essential, exists above civilian oversight. Patton commanded armies, but Congress commanded the conscience of a nation, and Marshall was telling Eisenhower that the nation had rendered its verdict. For all of Patton's genius, for all his speed and aggression and irreplaceable tactical vision, he'd violated something deeper than military law. He'd violated the American social contract, that citizen soldiers, even in their weakness, even in their fear, deserve dignity. Marshall wasn't drawing the line in anger, he was drawing it in mathematics. The political math no longer supported protecting Patton. And Eisenhower had to choose military efficiency or democratic principles. Eisenhower's voice is hoarse. "What do you recommend?" Marshall doesn't hesitate. "Formal investigation, public findings, relief from 7th Army Command, reassignment away from frontline command until this passes. Let Congress see action. Let the American people see accountability. Then, when the heat dies down, when the invasion demands it, bring him back. But not now. Not while democracy is demanding answers. Eisenhower exhales. Understood, sir. Ike, this isn't about whether Patton is a great commander. He is. This is about whether great commanders are above the standards we ask of every private. They're not. In a democracy, they especially are not. The line goes dead. Eisenhower makes his decision. December 1943. Patton is formally investigated. The findings are made public. Conduct unbecoming. Violation of military protocol. The punishment, public humiliation. Relief from 7th Army Command. Exile. While Omar Bradley prepares to lead the First Army into Normandy, while Bernard Montgomery commands ground forces, while every other general plans the greatest invasion in history, George Patton sits in England commanding a phantom army. The 1st United States Army Group. Fusag. A fake headquarters. Inflatable tanks, dummy planes, radio signals designed to fool German intelligence into thinking the invasion will hit Calais, not Normandy. The Army's best attack commander reduced to heading a deception operation. Patton writes in his diary, "I am a general without an army, a warrior without a war. They've benched me while lesser men take the field." But Eisenhower knows something Patton doesn't. This isn't permanent. This is penance. Let Congress have its pound of flesh. Let the scandal die. Then bring back the one general who can do what needs to be done. June 6, 1944. D-Day. Allied forces storm Normandy. Patton isn't there. He listens to reports from England, pacing his fake headquarters, watching other men fight the battle he was born for. The invasion succeeds. The beachheads hold. But the breakout stalls. Hedgerows. Fortified positions. German resistance stronger than expected. Bradley's First Army grinds forward slowly. Too slowly. Eisenhower needs speed. Needs aggression. Needs the one general who doesn't know how to fight slow. August 1st, 1944. Third Army activates. Patton takes command. Within 72 hours, he's moving. Not advancing. Exploding. Third Army breaks out of Normandy. Punches through German lines. In 3 weeks, Patton advances farther than any army in military history, across France, liberating towns at rates that make the Sicily campaign look cautious. His tanks move so fast, supply lines can't keep up. Patton doesn't care. He pushes forward. By September, Third Army has liberated more French territory than all other Allied armies combined. The scandal is forgotten. The newspapers that called for his head now call him a hero. Congress goes silent, because democracy spoke. And then, results spoke louder. Marshall understood what Eisenhower was struggling with during that phone call. Patton was militarily invaluable but politically indefensible. And in the American system, politics isn't a distraction from war. It's the foundation of war. Democracies fight differently because they answer to citizens, not just strategic logic. Dictatorships can ignore public opinion. Democracies can't. That's not weakness. That's the price of freedom. Marshall's line wasn't about punishing Patton. It was about preserving the principle that made American forces worth fighting for in the first place. Even in war, we don't abandon our values. Even under pressure, soldiers are citizens first. After the war, Marshall reflected on the Patton crisis in a letter to an Army historian. His words are preserved in the Marshall Library. The decision was never whether Patton was a great commander. He was. The decision was whether great commanders are above the standards we ask of every private. They are not. In a democracy, they especially are not. We fight not just to defeat tyranny abroad, but to preserve principle at home. The moment we excuse brutality because it's effective, we become what we're fighting against. George Patton never fully understood why slapping 2 soldiers nearly ended his career while defeating entire armies made him a hero. The answer was simple. America sent him to fight the enemy. It did not send him to brutalize Americans. Marshall made sure he learned the difference, even if it took Congress to teach him. Patton died in December 1945. Car accident in Germany? He never commanded troops in peacetime. Never faced another scandal. But his exile, those 7 months commanding a fake army while real men fought, defined him as much as his victories. Because in the end, democracy demanded accountability. And even the best general in the army had to answer. That's the untold story of what General Marshall told Eisenhower when Patton's war almost ended. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. In America, no one is above the people, not even the man who can win wars. If this story showed you a side of World War II leadership you've never seen before, subscribe to Elite War Files, hit that like button, and tell me in the comments, do you think Eisenhower made the right call? Should Patton have been relieved permanently, or was bringing him back the right move? I want to hear your thoughts, because these stories matter, not just as history, but as lessons, about leadership, about accountability, about the cost of democracy in wartime. I'm Elite War Files. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.